President Masoud Pezeshkian standing beneath the national flag, his face composed but firm. Behind him, senior military officials, engineers and scientists fill the marble-lined hall of the Atomic Energy Organization. The air carries a heavy stillness, part shock, part resolve, after a night that shook Iran's nuclear landscape. Hours earlier, coordinated Israeli and US airstrikes had struck several of the country's key enrichment and research sites, from Isfahan to Fordow. For many Iranians, it was a reminder that the nuclear question and the struggle for self-reliance remains the central test of their nation's endurance. Television viewers across the country watched as Pezeshkian addressed the nation live. His words, measured but unwavering, quickly became the line that defined the day. He said, "The knowledge rests with our scientists. By destroying buildings and factories, we will not be set back. We will rebuild, and we will build stronger than before." The phrase "stronger than before" spread instantly across Iranian media, repeated in headlines, hashtags and commentaries as both a declaration of defiance and a promise of reconstruction. What began as a military confrontation has now evolved into a test of national will. According to Iranian officials, the strikes targeted critical centrifuge halls and command centers, but left untouched the brains behind the program. The engineers and physicists who have maintained Iran's nuclear infrastructure through decades of sanctions, sabotage and cyber attacks. Pezeshkian's message was clear. Technology can be rebuilt and knowledge cannot be bombed. Inside Tehran, the mood is somber yet resolute. At major universities, students gather around television screens applauding the president's statement. Some wave small Iranian flags, others hold placards reading, "We will rebuild." Across social media channels permitted inside the country, phrases like national dignity trend throughout the morning. For a generation that has lived through sanctions and confrontation, the president's words tap into a familiar narrative, resistance through progress. Meanwhile, images broadcast by IRIB show teams of scientists walking through damaged laboratories. Walls are cracked, ceilings collapsed, but the white coats and safety goggles remain. A young technician speaks briefly to the camera, saying quietly, "They can destroy our walls, but not our knowledge." The sentence becomes emblematic of Iran's message to the world. In Washington, officials defend the overnight operation as a defensive action. A Pentagon spokesperson claims intelligence indicated preparations for a rapid enrichment surge. Israel's defense minister hails what he calls a preemptive success, suggesting that the strikes had prevented a regional catastrophe. But in Beijing and Moscow, the tone is different. China's foreign ministry calls for maximum restraint, warning that continued escalation could endanger global energy markets. Russia's statement is even sharper, describing the operation as a reckless provocation and urging the United Nations Security Council to intervene. Diplomatically, Pezeshkian's government now stands at a crossroads. Since taking office earlier this year, the former heart surgeon turned reformist politician had promised a more pragmatic foreign policy, dialogue without submission, progress without isolation. But the attacks threaten to upend those delicate calculations. Within hours, Iran's Revolutionary Guard issued a statement promising a strategic response. Yet the president himself avoided threats, instead emphasizing reconstruction. His restraint is interpreted by analysts as a bid to project calm leadership amid crisis. Political observers in Tehran say Pezeshkian's background as a doctor informs his tone. He speaks not of retaliation, but of healing, of rebuilding the damaged tissue of national industry. Nevertheless, beneath the language of renewal lies a warning. His assertion that Iran will rebuild stronger than before can also be read as a message to adversaries that each attempt to destroy Iran's capabilities may only accelerate them. Iran's nuclear network, according to international experts, is not centralized. Much of its research is spread across universities and semi-secret labs throughout the country. Satellite imagery reviewed by independent analysts suggests that while several surface structures were hit, deep underground facilities remain operational. The International Atomic Energy Agency in Vienna has expressed concern that the strikes could complicate ongoing verification efforts. Inspectors had only recently been negotiating renewed access after months of stalled talks. The knowledge rests with our scientists, the necessary nuclear know-how. By destroying buildings and factories, we will not be set back. We will rebuild and we will build the destroyed sites stronger than before. Inside Iran, however, the narrative is one of unity. State television runs documentaries of previous reconstruction efforts, the rebuilding of Natanz after the Stuxnet cyber attack in 2010, and the revival of the Arak heavy water reactor after the 2015 nuclear deal was abandoned. Each story reinforces the idea that destruction has always been followed by technological advancement. Viewers are reminded that after Stuxnet, Iran introduced more efficient centrifuges. After sanctions, it developed domestic manufacturing for precision components. In this light, Pezeshkian's promise to rebuild is both literal and symbolic, a vow to transform adversity into innovation. At the same time, ordinary Iranians face new hardships. Power cuts ripple through nearby provinces as infrastructure teams divert energy towards stabilizing damaged grids. Medical supplies and food shipments are delayed by renewed border inspections. Yet in interviews broadcast on local radio, citizens speak of determination. One shopkeeper says, "We have been through war and sanctions. This is just another test." Another adds, "Our scientists are our defense." We trust them more than missiles. Internationally, reactions remain divided. European governments issue cautious statements, urging both restraint and diplomacy. The European Union calls for an emergency meeting of the Joint Commission, the body created under the 2015 nuclear agreement, though few expect tangible progress. The United Nations convenes a late-night session in New York. Diplomats describe it as tense but inconclusive, with vetoes blocking any resolution. In the background, energy markets tremble. Oil prices spike by 4% within hours of the attack. Iran's allies across the region also weigh in. In Lebanon, Hezbollah issues a declaration of solidarity, calling the strikes a violation of international law. In Iraq and Syria, pro-Iranian militias pledge to defend the axis of resistance. Israel, meanwhile, heightens its alert level, deploying additional Iron Dome units near its southern border. The Persian Gulf, already crowded with naval patrols, sees an uptick in US and Iranian vessels shadowing one another, a familiar but dangerous choreography. Back in Tehran, reconstruction crews arrive at the damaged sites before dawn. Bulldozers clear debris, cranes lift twisted metal, and engineers sketch plans on portable tablets. State television reporters describe the work as national recovery. In the capital's main square, posters appear overnight bearing Pezeshkian's quote in bold calligraphy, "We will build stronger than before." The message is everywhere. On billboards, news tickers, even children's textbooks rush to print. For Pezeshkian, this moment defines his leadership. He has inherited not only the nuclear issue, but also an economy strained by inflation and a society yearning for reform. Yet in crisis, his calm demeanour has become his greatest political asset. Commentators note that he avoids fiery rhetoric typical of hardliners, choosing instead a tone of steady assurance. His supporters argue that this measured defiance may strengthen Iran's diplomatic position by framing it as victim rather than aggressor. Still, skepticism persists abroad. Western analysts warn that rebuilding stronger could mean more advanced centrifuges and deeper underground bunkers, a path that might push the region closer to confrontation. Dr. Emily Carter of King's College London tells AFP that Iran's message is twofold: internal reassurance and external deterrence. Pezeshkian is telling his people to stay calm while telling the world that pressure won't work. The symbolism is powerful. A heart surgeon who once rebuilt human organs now vows to rebuild a nation's nuclear organs, damaged but alive. His image appears across domestic media, portrayed not as a warrior, but as a restorer. Commentators highlight his years as a medical professional in Tabriz, his service in Parliament, and his reputation for moderation. The narrative crafted around him positions Iran as rational, disciplined, and scientifically determined, not reckless. As night falls, Tehran's skyline glows again. The domes of the mosques shimmer under searchlights, while television broadcasts show convoys delivering equipment to the reconstruction zones. Over the images, Pezeshkian's voice from earlier in the day is replayed. He says, "By destroying buildings and factories, we will not be set back." The statement plays repeatedly, underscored by orchestral music, a mix of defiance and resolve designed to unify a weary public. The world watches closely. In Washington, analysts debate whether the strikes will delay Iran's program or strengthen its resolve. In Vienna, the IAEA awaits Iran's decision on whether to allow new inspections. In Beijing, officials weigh the risk of energy instability. Every capital has a stake, and every diplomat knows that this confrontation could redefine regional alliances. Inside Iran's laboratories, work continues late into the night. Scientists recalibrate instruments, reassemble control panels and backup data. Some of the equipment, according to local media, had already been relocated before the attack, a sign that Iran anticipated the strikes. What emerges now is a portrait of continuity, a nation struck but not broken. As the credits of the day's broadcast roll, the narrator on state television summarizes the mood succinctly. From destruction rises determination. That sentiment encapsulates the Iranian narrative, a belief that external pressure breeds internal innovation. Whether this cycle leads to diplomacy or further conflict remains uncertain. Yet one truth stands at the heart of Pezeshkian's declaration. Knowledge cannot be bombed. It lives in the minds of people, in the scientists working under dim lights, in the engineers soldering damaged circuits, and in the students who see their country's future not in retaliation, but in resilience. And so, as Iran begins the slow process of rebuilding, the president's voice lingers across the airwaves, confident, deliberate, and defiant. We will rebuild, and we will build stronger than before. That single sentence, spoken in Farsi but understood far beyond Iran's borders, now defines a new chapter in the long and complicated story of confrontation between Tehran, Washington, and Tel Aviv. It is not merely a pledge of reconstruction, it is a statement of identity. The idea that Iran's strength lies not only in uranium and centrifuges, but in the conviction of its people. From the ruins of damaged facilities to the corridors of global diplomacy, that conviction echoes tonight. And whether it leads to reconciliation or renewed rivalry, the world will remember the message from Tehran that for Iran, destruction is never the end, only the beginning of building stronger than before.